Production support for this episode of In Focus is provided by Hoosier Energy, providing electricity to Central and Southern Indiana electric cooperatives and their member customers. Information at hepn.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Renewable energy production is on the rise in Indiana. In 2008, only 0.5% of the state's energy came from renewable resources. It's now up to 3%, but that still doesn't compare to traditional energy resources such as coal-fired power plants, which produce 95% of the state's energy. We'll talk about the future of alternative energy in Indiana and what that means for Hoosiers on this episode of In Focus. Thanks for joining us for this edition of In Focus. I'm Sarah Whitmire. Indiana produces 4 times more renewable energy now than it did in 2008. WTIU's Gretchen Frazee reports on how the increase in alternative energy sources could significantly affect Indiana's economy and its residents.
Most of the state's energy resources still come from coal. In fact, Indiana ranks among the top 10 states in the nation for both coal production and consumption. But State Utility Forecasting Group Director Douglas Gotham says alternative energy resources are on the rise, and having multiple sources of energy can reduce economic risks.
It's like diversifying your retirement portfolio. We're diversifying our energy portfolio. If something happens in terms of regulations that significantly increases the cost of getting electricity from coal, it's nice to have a piece of our pie coming from somewhere other than coal.
Wind farms have been the main driver of growth in the renewable energy sector, making up about half of all alternative energy in Indiana. Large-scale wind farms arrived in 2007. There are now 4 in the state. The most recent is the 17,000-acre Wildcat wind farm in Tipton and Madison counties, and the Texas-based developer Eon plans to expand it to Howard and Grant counties. While there are benefits from an economic standpoint, renewable energy projects like these aren't always an easy sell. At a recent Howard County Commissioners meeting, resident after resident stood up to speak against letting the wind turbines be placed near their homes. Many fear the wind turbines have negative environmental effects, such as killing bats, and they could reduce property values.
It will most definitely reduce the pool of buyers that will choose to live in a home near one of these projects. And that there's a myriad of reasons for that. Some people simply don't want to look at them. Most people, it's more of a potential for the health effects.
There's also the constant noise the turbines produce, and some residents have experienced disruptions with television and cell phone services. Opposition groups like the one in Howard County can be detrimental to individual energy projects. Plans for a wind farm near Lebanon was abandoned a few years ago because residents there were opposed to the project. But Gotham says these hurdles are still small when compared to the state's future.
So I think it does limit it somewhat to the parts of the state that are less populated, but those also tend to be the better wind resources anyway. So I don't think it may have a serious effect on an individual project that's trying to be developed, but I think overall the effect's not that significant.
And there are many other renewable energy projects in Indiana. The Indianapolis International Airport is building what will be the largest wind farm in North America. It's made up of 44,000 solar panels and will generate enough energy to power 2,000 homes.
The airport had land they couldn't really use because it was right above a runway and 15 feet is the height restriction, so they were only doing hay at the permanent time. So the airport gets a long-term lease option for 30 years on the property. We win because we develop jobs and economic impact, and also the taxpayer wins as well because there's tax that will come off the roll of the actual land and have to be paid during the project.
There are also lesser-known projects that are going on in the state. Researchers are working to create energy out of landfill waste, capture thermal energy, and produce biofuel crops that can be turned into ethanol and other energy sources.
We're joined in studio tonight by Peter Schubert, the director of the Lugar Center for Renewable Energy, Laura Ann Arnold, the president of the Indiana Distributed Energy Alliance, and Nick Mello, the president of Johnson-Melloh Solutions. Thanks to all of you for being here tonight. I want to just get started with you, Peter. We heard in that story there some of the projects that are underway in Indiana, but I'm sure there are many more. So if you can just sort of give us a glimpse of some of the other things underway.
A lot of the projects we're working on with the Lugar Center for Renewable Energy at IUPUI involve batteries and fuel cells, biomass, and energy efficiency. We have an industrial assessment center that provides at no charge a assessment of energy efficiency for small to medium-sized enterprises. So this addresses the negawatts, if you will, of being able to avoid the need for additional energy, which helps reduce our need for energy in particular and allows us to increase the amount of renewables that we use.
Okay, and we heard a lot about just the solar panel farm at Indianapolis, and Nick, that's your company that's doing that. If you can explain to us how that works, how is the energy going to go from the airport to powering all of these homes?
The power produced from the actual solar plant is interconnected with Indianapolis Power and Lights lines, and the source of electricity is going to flow to wherever it needs. It's most likely going to flow back to the airport, but if there was an overproduction type situation, it would just backfeed the grid and make its way to homes and businesses in that surrounding area.
So the airport will be using some of
Yes.
the energy that's
Yes.
produced there.
Yes,
But the airport is just leasing the land.
that's correct. Their source of revenue is from the lease.
Okay. And as we're talking about some of these projects that are underway in Indiana, some of the things you were talking about, Peter, how do we get those from idea to actually something that people are using out in the field? Like some of the research with biomass, for example.
Probably the most important consideration is economics. So a lot of the work that we do is trying to address how we can reduce both the cost of purchasing the type of equipment that you need, as well as reducing the cost of operations. Because we have very low prices for energy in our state, it makes a very high bar for going to alternative sources. So one consideration for that is that many of our traditional sources of energy have certain exogenous externalities, which are costs to society that are not paid for. So that's a challenge that we face in the state in making a level playing field for new and alternative technologies.
Cost to society, what do you mean by that, such as?
An example comes from the president's speech at Georgetown University earlier this week, where he said that right now our energy production is putting huge amounts of carbon into our atmosphere, and this is causing global warming. And he says this has got to stop. So he's directed the EPA to start addressing carbon and putting a price on that for emissions. Carbon is a big one, but other ones are the metals that are put into the atmosphere from coal-fired power plants. Those affect our health and neurological disorders as well. So those are known costs to society which are currently not included in our electricity bills.
And Laura, I want to get you involved in the conversation on that note. In a state such as Indiana, where I think we're one of the top 10 coal-producing states, how do you sell this idea of renewable energy? And then when you hear the president's speech this week, you know, what is the reaction in Indiana to something like that?
Well, one of the unique aspects of what's been happening here in Indiana is that we've had two investor-owned electric utilities that have voluntarily implemented what we call a feed-in tariff. And the project that Nick's company has been doing with the Indianapolis airport is just one of several projects that will be going in Indianapolis for potentially up to 100 megawatts. And this was a voluntary program created by Indianapolis Power and Light. There's another smaller program that has been operating in Northwest Indiana with the Northern Indiana Public Service Company. Biomass, for example, that you were asking Peter about, there have been a number of programs and projects using anaerobic digesters so that a commercial agricultural business like Culver Duck Farm up in Middlebury is able to take all the waste products from that operation and put that into an anaerobic digester, produce a gas, and then be able to have a genset or a cogen unit at the back end and produce electricity and put that back into the grid. So it's actually solving two problems. So it's not just solar and wind as we think about, but things like anaerobic digesters for biomass.
So let's talk about some more of those different kinds of things that we don't think about. Biomass is one of them. Was it hydroelectric energy? It seems like all of them do have some sort of limitation attached to them, though. How do we overcome that? I'll open that one up to the panel.
I think he mentioned it earlier, or energy storage technology is where we need to go. We need to be able to store the energy the wind turbines produce when we don't need it, for instance, at night. Same thing with solar. We're producing a lot of power from solar on a moderate day where there's not a big heating and air conditioning load. Energy storage is where we could turn that on at any time and be able to harness the energy that we've produced.
Another form of energy is geothermal, but it's not the geothermal that we think about in terms of geysers and hot water coming up out of the air, but using the temperature differential in the earth itself. And another university up there in Muncie, Ball State University, is going to be one of the largest geothermal systems pretty much around in the country. And so that's helping to provide the heating and cooling load.
Is geothermal, is it true that it's not available everywhere though? Explain that to me. Are there limitations on geothermal in locations where you can do the drilling?
Yeah, there can
required?
be. Let's put it this way, the limitations are in general economic with respect to how much land you have, whether or not you're trying to use an open loop geothermal system where you have a body of water or a pond or something, or whether you're using closed loop, or whether you're just using some other sort of system. So yeah, there are limitations to each of these, which is one of the reasons groups like ours are trying to advocate different policies in the state of Indiana. I participated in a webinar yesterday where we talk about shared renewables, how people together in a community that, let's say a neighborhood, maybe one person has the roof space for solar panels, but someone else lives in the second floor in a 4-story condo building. Well, they don't have roof space, they don't have the availability, but they want to participate in this revolution dealing with going to renewable. So how do we do that? Well, we need the state of Indiana and our utilities on our state government need to look at these creative mechanisms that are happening in other parts of the country.
Yeah, how does Indiana rank, or how does it compare to other states in terms of its renewable energy, the resources it's putting into it? Who wants to take that one? Do you want to take that one, Peter?
We're one of about, I think, 16 states that do not have a renewable portfolio standard. As Laura mentioned, we do have a voluntary standard which was made available a couple of years ago that a couple of utilities have taken care of.
I'm sorry for interrupting. A portfolio standard. You might have to explain that to us.
Renewable portfolio standard is where a state says we want a certain percentage of our energy to come from renewable sources by a certain time.
So a mandate, essentially.
20% by 2025. Iowa's been one of the leaders in that, and they're now getting almost 25% of their electric power from wind. So Indiana is at least better than some of the states in having a voluntary portfolio. But if you look at Forbes magazine's rankings, for example, they list the greenest states with 6 different metrics, and Indiana ranks second to last.
Okay.
Your question earlier was in regards to how do we get more, and Mr. Gotham earlier, he pointed it out perfectly, and how do you convince people is this is nothing but more than a diversification hedge. And with 95, 85, 90% coal-fired generation, it's going to come to roost at some point. Indiana doesn't swing a big stick nationally to fend off EPA regulations and other things. So it's disappointing that we haven't been a little bit more forward-thinking and seeing that this day was going to come. His forecasts are saying, close to 40% increase in electric rates within the next 7 years. So, I mean, a little bit of diversification, when times were good. Indiana for years has touted that we're low-cost power to attract companies and businesses, and I'm not sure what we really did to deserve that other than be right in the middle of coal country. And just be, just by virtue of where we're at, we were the beneficiary. I don't think we had enough foresight to say maybe we should be, diversifying our portfolio a little bit, because the day is going to come when this is going to come to roost and we're not going to be able to fend it off. I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
Well, hasn't that been one of the main arguments behind not putting resources into renewable energy, is that our utility rates are already low?
But on the other hand, after the president's speech, I think sometimes here in Indiana we look at the glass and we see that it's half empty instead of half full. We should be looking at the opportunity for Indiana with the manufacturing base that we have, with the kinds of skilled workforce, that we shouldn't be just looking at how to have renewable energy be employed. We should be looking at opportunities for new renewable energy manufacturing. And we are very well positioned to do that, and there have been a number of studies to that effect. And the economic benefits of getting on board and trying to help with that transition, not just installing the equipment, but manufacturing it and doing the kinds of research that Peter and his folks are doing there at the Lugar Center, that is what will really bring long-lasting economic development to our state.
Amen to that.
If you looked at just the pipeline in Indianapolis Power and Light and the feed-in tariff that they offered, just to sign in some real basic financials behind what we know to be true, you're looking at about $300 million worth of construction projects in Indianapolis if all those projects get built out. People get real excited about, Lucas Oil Stadium and, I love the Colts, but, this is something that could generate jobs for a long, long time. And there's ongoing operations and maintenance jobs. It stimulates the local banking economy, construction jobs. It is a true domino effect. I can attest to that because I've lived it. I mean, our company has seen the growth and the financial benefits of being able to develop these projects and see them to an end.
I've got to ask about the folks who work in the coal industry, though. So it does employ, I don't have the number in front of me, but
Yeah. 2,500.
2,500. Okay, so I'm saying 2,500 people in the state. What happens to those folks?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, it really is, and I don't know if there's a magical wave our wand and that's going to be okay. I think a lot of it's going to go in retraining people. I mean, there's going to have to be people that install these projects. In Indiana, in our case, unfortunately, you're having to look to where the experience is, and it's not in Indiana. So there's some out-of-state, contractors that are participating in these jobs. But, those jobs, some of them are going to have to be retrained. Some of them are, unfortunately, it's probably going to come to an end. Unless there's some way that, clean coal can actually work in the future, which I haven't completely given up hope on. I hope for the sake of everyone. My brother-in-law happens to be one of those guys. I hope for his sake and everyone's that there is something out there, that clean coal technology or something that really takes hold, and we can continue to use the coal here in Indiana.
Will renewable energy ever replace traditional energy sources in Indiana, Peter?
It'll take a long time. To Laura's point, we want to create those kind of jobs. And when I first met with Senator Lugar, when I was appointed the director of the center at IUPUI, he said, we're doing some great work in the universities, but we've got to bridge that gap and get that into the marketplace. Former State Senator Beverly Gard said the same thing to our advisory board. They said, how can we take university research and turn that into jobs and revenues for the state and start increasing the amount of renewable energy that we've got? So we've adopted a pipeline approach where we're working on technologies that are ready right now, that we're already doing pitches to investors to turn these into companies to increase the amount of products that we've got right now, as well as things that are 5 years out, 10 years out, even 30 years out, and then trying to march those things to the marketplace. We've also got a group of entrepreneurs and residents who are either retired engineers or people between career who are willing to work with the university to help us develop business plans, marketing analysis, and get our legs underneath us so we can take university research and get that in the marketplace and really make that difference and get to the point where our state can now be a leader in renewable energy.
And Laura, you mentioned homeowners earlier, but how do you get to the place where this sort of technology is affordable for homeowners? Because right now that seems to be something that's pretty prohibitive to a lot of folks, is the purchasing of, say, a solar panel, for example.
Actually, you have a terrific local group here in Bloomington called Siren, Southern Indiana Renewable Energy Network, that has been doing a terrific job educating consumers, helping people, doing almost like solar PV barn raising, where one group of people will maybe buy some panels and they'll go and do a group install. The price has definitely dropped, but nationally it's not just the price of the equipment. There are things that local government needs to do with respect to permitting and licensing of professionals to do these kinds of installations. We've already seen a little of this in Indianapolis, where The city of Indianapolis just was not prepared. The zoning and the permitting was just not prepared to deal with these kinds of solar PV installations of this order of magnitude. So there are a lot of different kinds of things that need to be done. But the price of solar has dropped dramatically. And we need to look at other kinds of individual financing operations, things like third-party financing, which, Nick, I know you and your company have been very interested in doing that, that allows a homeowner to, you know, the kind of no money down and allow someone else to actually own the equipment and have that company then enter an agreement to sell that electricity or have some sort of a leasing agreement. Some of those things right now are prohibited or extremely difficult under Indiana state law. So we're trying to work on removing those kinds of barriers, try to explain to people, hey, this stuff does work, and we certainly hope that the big flashy projects like at the airport will help people to sit up and notice and like, wow, you mean this stuff really can work here? And I think that's been very, very important. I know it's been important in northern Indiana. You've got places up in Amish country around Goshen, Napanee, and Elkhart County where you see solar panels and stuff going up all over the place. So,
Nick, do you work much with individual consumers, or are your projects mostly on a larger scale, like the airport?
My strategy from the very beginning with my partner Kurt was in learning this whole solar industry. We wanted to learn it from the ground up. So we do lots of individual type homeowner, small commercial projects. Financing's key. There's a bank called Admiral's Bank on the East Coast that we partner with that is really progressively offering some good financing packages. But you know what? This is more of a mindset question. I pose this question all the time, and I don't know the answer to it, and these are personal decisions for people. I personally pay to have my recycling picked up. I personally choose to drive a certain type of vehicle. I personally choose to live in a certain type of house. Architects and engineers specify products and buildings and schools that they're personal decisions. And do they need to be what they are? Do I need to drive the car? No, I don't. But if you really are looking at this and you really want to make a difference, then that's your opportunity. Solar works well. I have it on my home. It works extremely well. It's actually far exceeded production expectations in every model that we've ran. We've never had an installation that didn't produce what we thought it was going to. And I'll take that just a step further. One thing we really like about solar is Indianapolis Power and Light was able to provide us data on our peak demands on our commercial building where we have about 100 kW of solar. And as you might expect, the solar production almost identically mirrors the demand on our building. We actually set our peak demand at night in the winter because we have electric heat. So there's some real good reasons why solar should be a big mix in that whole energy portfolio, because it does shave demand. In regards to the energy efficiency, I've been in and around energy efficiency projects my entire career, and it's certainly a big key and a big piece of the pie. The one thing I don't necessarily like about it is it's still subject to human error, or human, not running the building efficiently, not running the HVAC correctly, not turning the lights off. Sometimes people think that's the whole panacea. We're going to put in energy efficient lighting, a new HVAC system, and all our energy problems go away, and it's not the case. It's still subject to humans making mistakes. So one thing I love about solar, I'd love to see the state of Indiana allow solar projects to count towards the utilities demand side management programs. It really makes a lot of sense. The other thing too is, like it or not, I think we as Americans, Midwesterners, we don't like to be told we have to use a certain light bulb and have a certain efficiency air conditioner. Allowing someone to be independent and produce their own power, now that is appealing. That's appealing. That's what appeals to me as an entrepreneur is, I'm taking a little bit of my dependence on the power company into my own hands. So I'd love to see the state of Indiana allow the utilities to allow the demand side management programs to include solar in that whole mix.
We're almost out of time, but I want to ask before we do run out of time, just quickly, we've seen this trend where the renewable energy we're using in the state is growing. Do we expect that trend to continue?
The trend has to continue. I think the market forces are getting better. As Laura mentioned, the price of solar has dropped dramatically. Prices of wind have dropped dramatically. We're working on technologies to do not only anaerobic digestion, which has been done in a couple places around the state, but also converting thermochemically from non-food residues into energy. So we're developing those kind of technologies as well. One of the technologies that's further out on our radar screen is the ability to put into orbit a solar panel to get sunlight all the time to avoid the need for grid storage that Nick mentioned earlier. So this is a long-term project, but can really help us out.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for your time. Thank you. That is our show for tonight. Thanks again to our panel of experts for joining us. You can leave a comment or see the full video of this show by visiting our website. That's indianapublicmedia.org/infocus. Thanks also to all of you for watching and for listening. Have a great night.
Production support for this episode of In Focus is provided by Hoosier Energy, providing electricity to Central and Southern Indiana electric cooperatives and their member customers. Information at hepn.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.